talking about QuickBooks Online, some bank reconciliation kind of awarenesses, I guess I could say tips and tricks, fixes. Those are just some things around bank reconciliation inside of QuickBooks Online. I'm Marjorie. I'm the CEO of Fourlane. I have such a love-hate relationship with QuickBooks Online, right? Coming from QuickBooks Desktop for so many years, it is hard to shift my brain to some of the differences, right? But I see a lot of progress being made in this space, which is very exciting to see. And just a lot of innovation, I guess. Little things that you would say like, oh, that's really neat. Getting better and better in this QuickBooks Online space. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get the ball rolling here. Remind you guys just a little bit about who Fourlane is, what makes us unique. Because we do mostly QuickBooks, most of our clients are coming from QuickBooks, but they came from somewhere else. So over the years, we have picked up and started treating customers in the product they're in, instead of just always forcing them to convert to the products that we work with best. Most of our clients still end up converting to QuickBooks, but we do support people in NetSuite, Xero, Acumatica, and then there's lots of other add-on products as well, right? Fishbowl. What was the one I saw this morning? Procore. Hadn't seen that you just see it every once in a while. Service Titan, etc. So we are ERP consultants, meaning that we know how to push the boundaries of the software. There are so many times when people come to us. I always joke about, like, when I'm networking, I don't like to say I work with QuickBooks, because you either get the people who are like, oh my gosh, I have 1,000 questions for you, or you get the people who think, oh, you just work with small businesses. And it's just, so it's funny. We definitely maximize QuickBooks. Our clients are not, they don't consider themselves to be small business, right? That 2 to 50 million marker is really where we specialize. And then, as always, we're going to know about the accounting and the software. So we're going to be talking a little bit about this today, especially knowing how to enable, disable features in the software is one thing. Knowing why to, what report is going to be affected, how can I get better data because I do this, that is what we want you guys to learn through these webinars. All right, so today we're going to be talking about troubleshooting bank reconciliations. First, we're going to discuss hunting for variances and some little tips and tricks with that when you're doing bank reconciliations or credit card reconciliations or any balance sheet reconciliation, truthfully, right? It's just reconciliation, period. We just call them bank recs, right? That's what most people associate reconciliation with. And then we're going to talk about some of the beginning balance doesn't balance, and we'll see how far we get with that today. I did have this as 2 different sessions, but once I got into it, I kind of tried to squish it into one, so I'm hoping we can get through everything. Okay, so let's go ahead and go in product. So I am going to do this one in a QuickBooks Online test drive. I do have our sample files, of course, but I like to do things in the test drive because then y'all can follow along. So if you just Google, right, QuickBooks Online sample company file, you will see this article. You can pull it up and then click on into it. If you are logged into QuickBooks Online, I was logged in this morning to our sample file doing some beta testing for Intuit, and they wouldn't let me get to the sample file. So you have to log out as yourself in order to get to the sample file. So just FYI. Okay, looks like we have a question real quick. Oh, yes. Yeah, so yes, we do conversions from, so David asked if we can, he has a client in Wave Accounting, and asked if we can help them move to QuickBooks Online. Yeah, good. Intuit. Fourlane started as a conversion company. That's how we got started. Was we were converting people from Sage 300 or Mass 90 back then, Great Plains, AS 400. So I would convert these people from these softwares into QuickBooks Enterprise. That's how we kind of got started. So we do probably half of our services is around conversion services. Yeah, we can definitely help with that. Okay, conversions are not fun for anyone, I don't think, but we do. So we also do a Sage, just since you had asked about it, we also do a Sage 50 conversion. So we'll attempt to get them in product converted from Sage 50 into QuickBooks Online, or Peachtree, as it used to be known as. I know Intuit offers some kind of service around that. Theirs mostly fails, but most in-product attempts fail, right? It's probably like 90% fail using in-product tools. But we can pivot from there when we need to, right? Just because the in product doesn't work doesn't mean that you can't get them moved across. So thanks for asking that question, David. Okay, so bank reconciliations. So here I am in my Craig's Design Landscaping Services. Again, hopefully you guys can follow along with me. If I come up to my gear here and I go down to Reconcile, it gives us this little thing about, you know, all the pop-ups that we have in QuickBooks Online, and another one. I did watch this little video, by the way. Stuart Albright is funny, so yay, Stuart. I knew Stuart when he first started working into it. It's a helpful video about like navigation inside of reconciliation screen. So anyway, you can take a look at that. The one thing that is super annoying is I can't get rid of it. So, but cool to see Stuart's voice there. All right, so I'm going to be focusing down here on the MasterCard account. So I'm actually going to reconcile a credit card account, not a bank account. Whenever we're reconciling and kind of messing around, or you don't know ending balance or whatever, right? So like I have a customer who they process 4,000 transactions a month on their credit cards. So we don't always know the ending balance, but we like to go in and start to tick things off along the way, or we do weekly reconciliations tying out to the bank. So anyway, if you don't know what the ending balance is going to be, you can put in 0 and come back and enter it again in the future. So I'll show you that. But especially if you're playing around, right? If I'm playing around in here, I don't actually have a physical statement with me, so I have to back into the ending balance number. So I'm going to say we are reconciling through the end of March. Okay, now quick keys in here, right? I can, if you hit M takes you to the beginning of the month, M31, M again, 21, M11. H takes you to the end of the month because month ends in H, H131, 228, 331. Anyway, so you can use those to, if you guys prefer tabs. And then space is a select bar. So if you tab over something, you can hit space and move forward. Can't use, it doesn't matter if I say don't show this again because this is a sample file, so it's going to show it to me again. You can't use tab for everything inside QuickBooks Online, but I like to point out how you can because I miss my tab. All right, so starting things off here, right away you can see it's limiting how many transactions I'm seeing right now because it's showing me only to the statement ending date, so I can exit out of that. That way I can see everything, so that's something to just pay attention to. When we're hunting for variances, right? So let's say we go in and, you know, select all, or we do put in the statement end date, allow it to do through the statement end date, and we mass select all. And let's say we're hunting for variances, right? So we selected all the ones that we expect that we should have checked off. I'm just going to keep going here for a couple. So I'm at 709.76. Right? A lot of times what we're doing is we're looking for variances, right? So if we checked off all the ones, we said check, 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 and then we look at this total up here, right? Total number of charges that we've checked off or whatever it is, and there's a variance from what we expect there should be, okay? Meaning the bank statement says 709.67 instead of 709.76. Right, so we're looking for quick tips on, we've checked some things off and there is a difference and we don't think there should be because we checked all the things off, right? Like we went line by line on that bank statement or that credit card statement and we checked it off. So some tips with this. So the first one that us as accounting folk like to point out, right? And I'm going to pull over an Excel spreadsheet so you guys can see this. I thought it would be easier to do it that way than any other way, is when you are off, right? So like, let's say I'm off, I guess 709.76, and I'm off somewhere. Usually what, if you do, the first thing you should do is figure out what is the variance, right? So if I'm off 709.76, 709.76, and mine shows 700.76, if the variance is off by 9, it's usually transposing numbers somewhere, right? So this is the total, right? The total of what my bank reconciliation says and what the bank's total says. This is what I'm implying here. If there's a variance of 9, it's usually transposing numbers. So again, if you see down here, 54.45, 67.76, 89.98, 12.21, if I take any of those and subtract them, there's a variance of 9, right? So it's usually transposing two numbers that are next to each other, and that's what you're looking at. Now, if you do this variance here, right, so doing it 709 minus 700, that is in the ones area. So somewhere in the ones area, there's a variance, right? If it was 709.67, somewhere in the pennies area, there is a variance, right? So you can use figuring out that difference to see and give you some information on what is happening. I need to go faster. So if that were the case, right, and we figured out that the pennies are off, we're off by 9 cents, then all you have to do is focus on the pennies. So go down the reconciliation screen and just look at pennies. 08, 00, 09, 92, 45. Oh, wait, that's supposed to be 54. Okay, and then you can edit it and fix it right in here, right? So I can move it across, 54. Save. Okay. Okay, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything in my notes here, just real quick. So let me come back to this screen. Ignore pennies, figure out the 1s, 10s, variances usually. Okay, so also too, when you're going through reconciliations, I mean, if you're going through 4,000 transactions a month, then you need to probably take smaller segments. Usually when we're going through multiple thousands of transactions a month, we download the bank statement to Excel so that we can subtotal along the way and make sure we're still on track. You do not ever go check off 4,000 transactions without subtotaling, because you will want to cry at the end, because most likely it will not add up, right? Usually in the smaller transactions, right, so if they have like a 1 or 2 page reconciliation statement, generally it is one transaction that is off, right? So that's why when we say if we're off by 9, if you're off by 9, if you're off by 18, that means usually 2 transactions have transposes, right? If you're off by 27, 3 transactions have been transposed. So you can kind of use that little tip as well. But usually what we find is it's one transaction's off. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back into this reconciliation, right? So I'm going to edit the info on the reconciliation. I'm going to say I'm reconciling as of 4/5, because that's my cutoff date for my bank or for my credit card, and it's 709.85 is my ending balance. Now that I backed into it, because I just used these numbers to tell me, which you should not do, right? You should be reading from a bank statement, or a credit card statement. But now that I've seen that, I can go ahead and say finish now. And yay, it gives me all these like, woohoo, you've done a good job. Okay, so now I've got my MasterCard and it's done as of 4/5. Once we come in here, we can look at our history by account. So I'm looking at the history by account, and it shows me all reconciliations in here, okay? So now let's say we go in to our credit card register, and I'm going to go through the first situation, which is, you know, you're poking around your credit card register and like doing the things, and then you accidentally select and uncheck that R, and you just are clicking because that's what people do. And you have now saved this transaction, and that R means it's reconciled, but now you have said this transaction is no longer reconciled by accidentally clicking through all those things. So what happens? So when I go in to reconcile this account, right, it's going to give me a warning right away. Hey, your beginning balance is off. And it tells me why my beginning balance is off. And I can click through to here. So you can use the discrepancy report, right? And so I can click in and it gives me a discrepancy report. It tells me what happened, tells me it was unreconciled in the register, which is different than QuickBooks Desktop, right? It wouldn't say that. It would just say reconciliation status changed or something. But so you can see all of these things. But what I want to focus on today is I want to focus on the reconciliation reports and what it shows in here. So I have my 405 statement ending date, my 8254. When I click in to look at this report, it's going to show up top here. There was a reconciliation change for 8254. It was unreconciled. So all of the information that it shows on that reconciliation discrepancy report is here. You can click into this transaction and look at the audit trail too. Down below, though, notice, right, I can come in here and still see that transaction because it's saying it was reconciled. Now it's not reconciled. That's why there's a difference, right? So with this one, because the transaction still exists, I can go, oh, you know, I messed up. I'm going to go back in there. The C, by the way, means it's checked off to be reconciled, but not reconciled yet, right? And now R is it's actually reconciled. I can just cycle through to get to that R, say save. Now when I go into reconciliation, I don't have any errors. And when I go to that, it has corrected itself, right? There is no warning up top. Nothing has changed down below. It's almost as if that never happened. All right. So that's one. The second thing that happens frequently when it comes to reconciliations is that somebody decides, you know what? I don't think I paid Tanya's nursery $54.92. I think I paid them $55.92 for some reason. And they go in and they change the amount. So again, if I click into this transaction, I do have the ability to see the audit history. And I can see, right, that it was edited. The amount changed from $54.92 to $55.92, who did it, when it was done. So you can see all of these things. When I go back into Reconcile, it gives me that warning. The beginning balance is off by $1. I can go into the history by account. I have one reconciliation still in here. And it shows me that the dollar's off. If I view the report, I can see that dollar. I can click into it. It's showing up top on the top of my report. And notice that down below, what it's showing is the $54.92. So just awareness. If you print off this report and you see something up top here, the amount down below is almost like a PDF. It is capturing what happened, and up top is capturing any changes. Original amount, changed amount, right? Okay. All right, so fixing this one. I'm going to go back in there to $55.92. I go, oh, darn it, Marjorie, please don't do that again in the future. Save it, correct it. I go back to that reconciliation. it's as if nothing happened. The report bounces back to normal. Everything looks just as it was. Okay. So it tells you how to go fix the problem in those two cases. One where the amount changes, one where the reconciliation is unmarked. Now we're going to go through a new one. We're going to go through delete, because most common that we found people don't tend to edit. They tend to re-enter. So they're like, oh wait, I never put in that cow telephone payment for $74.36. I'm going to go ahead and put that in again. Then they come in the register and they see there's two of them. They're like, oh, I got to delete one. And 50% of the time they delete the one that has been reconciled. So I'm going to delete this one too today. So I have a whole bunch of things. Let me just jot down before I do that actually. I have, let me go back to my reconcile before I delete. I meant to do this before. So I have 709.85. That's one, is my balance that I want to get back to at some point once I fix this deletion. And then the transaction that I'm going to delete, I'm going to delete the 8809. And the 8809 is, I'm not going to do the bill payment because that makes it a little harder, right? Just the straight credit card payment or credit card transaction. So 8809, it's on 326. It's Hicks Hardware and Dex and something is where it's hitting. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete. This is the best reason why, by the way, right? Because if you're unsure of what QuickBooks Online is going to do, you should not do it. If you guys could see my little smirk right now, by the way. If you're unsure of what QuickBooks Online is going to do, don't do it. This is why we recommend our customers to have sandbox environments, right? You can, in QuickBooks Online Advanced, take a copy of your QuickBooks Online file and put it into a sandbox file where you can test what is QuickBooks Online going to do. So you know when I click this button, delete this thing, unreconcile this, what happens. So sandbox is very important in this environment because there is no undo. There is no undo delete. You can't just make a comeback. So sandbox is very important. If you do not know what you're, if you do not know, do not do it. Okay, so I deleted that transaction. Now when I go to reconcile, got a warning, 8809. Says we can help you fix it. This has been deleted. I click view. It shows me everything that's been deleted, but I cannot make this transaction come back. I have to recreate the transaction. Which if you understand databases, right? Even though I'm going to put the exact same amount of information in it, behind the scenes, there is a transaction ID that tracks all lines and transactions inside of QuickBooks, and it will have a new transaction ID. So that is what makes it different than just unreconciling or editing the amount on the original transaction. Okay. So the 8809 says it can help fix it, but they really can't. It's not the same. You can't really help me fix this. So I have to go in and re-enter transaction first. So before I do that, let's look at, still have one reconciliation here. When I view the report, it has that 8809. So if you see this deleted, you're like, oh gosh, this is going to mess us up. Okay. And notice that down below here, that transaction is still here. So it's kind of like a PDF, as I was mentioning. But these transactions have hyperlinks. This one doesn't because it does not exist. All right. I know I see some questions coming in, and I will definitely get to them here in just a minute. Okay, I'm on a roll. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the credit card register, right? I'm going to go in and enter the expense. So let's go ahead and enter the expense. I said, who did I pay? Hicks Hardware. Okay, it was on the MasterCard. The payment date was 3/26. And I didn't have any of these things. Category and expenses was decks. We have 2 decks and patios. I don't know. Strange. Well, hopefully I picked the right one. I don't know why we'd have 2. And then we have 8809. Okay. And I can save this transaction. Now when I go back into my register, I have that 8809 down here. Maybe. Where'd it go? Oh boy, what'd I do wrong? 8809. I don't know what I just did. Let me do it again. I don't know what I just did. That it did not pick up on the master. Oh, I put it to the checking account. That's what I just did. Let's see. I can come back to my recent and fix that. I love that when I'm doing this. I'm like, well, I just entered this. Where did it go? Okay, 8809. Now it's down here, right? Now it's down here. So if I come into this transaction and just mark it as reconciled and say save, yes, and I go back to my reconciliation screen, okay, there's not a warning in here when I go to my history by account, though it still shows the 8809 as a variance. And when I view the report, it still shows the 8809 as a variance. Okay. When I go back into my reconciliation, doesn't say a beginning balance is off because I basically forced the beginning balance through, but let's see what it looks like if I'm coming in now to reconcile May 5th. Right? That 8809 is not showing up on here either. So by just marking it reconciled, that is not solving our problem. What we need is we need to see where is this going to show up. So my suggestion is not to do that. What we should do is go in and reconcile. Oh, because I had already started it, that's why. And I'm going to edit the information and get to the ending balance that I want, 709.85, and I'm going to go back and throw it in on the same date as what I reconciled before. Now in QuickBooks Desktop, when you do this, they have the PDF report option, and then they have like build the report fresh option. In QuickBooks Online, they don't have the build the report fresh option. So I come in here, I'm forcing through the balance, I'm checking off the 8809 and then saying finish now. Okay, so now the beginning balance is all correct. When I look at history by account though, I have 2 reconciliations. One that shows, you know, here is the original reconciliation with that 8809 deleted out. The second one is showing here is where I recreated 8809 and have now reconciled it again. So if you needed substantiation for your reconciliation, for audit purposes or whatever, they would both be in there correctly, right? So you'd have to run both and show them both, but at least you would have the additional substantiation that you did recreate the transaction and it was put through. Okay. All right. I think that's as far as I'm going to get today because it's 11:29. It went by super fast. Let me see if I can answer a couple questions. All right, so it says, a different David, we have lots of Davids today. Will you show the proper way to reconcile an invoice that is paid via PayPal or another source that takes out a fee? Okay, so David, I'll add that. Let me pop into what we're doing next. I will add that to what we need to do in the future over here. So I have all things accounts receivable, and I will add how to handle PayPal fees in a couple of weeks here on invoice payment. Okay. And then David has, back to the original, David. Has the bookkeeper put in the transactions before you go to the reconciliation, real-time accounting versus after the fact reconciled? The real-time is, I'm not sure, David, what you're talking about there. And then back to the second David asking a question too. How do you access the sandbox? So with the sandbox, what we do, when you have QuickBooks, multiple QuickBooks files, right, you'd be able to go in and see all of your accounts. If you have multiples, right, so you'd be able to switch accounts when you log in and choose which one you are going to access. Let me see if I can log in as myself real quick. And sign in, and I'm gonna get code and 948-436. So you can see here, right, I have different company files. So one would say Fourlane QBO and one would say Fourlane Sandbox. Now we have a whole bunch in here because we've got so many like different sample files, but you would have a sandbox environment. So you would just choose that other company. So like if I'm in Laura's Lambs, that I can log out and go into the other company file. So if you guys have questions on sandbox, you can definitely let me know. Okay, we're over time, but I will see you guys next week.